It's the lies about Sharia law that are racist, that are designed to demonise and other. You could say Donald Trump is a terrible president. But if you say it's he wants to introduce white supremacy, well, actually, that doesn't quite work, does it? Because he is in the process of introducing white supremacy, and you've got the evidence to prove it. In Sadiq Khan's case, the polar opposite is true. The polar opposite is true. So I don't even know if it's a phone-in, is it? Is that racist? Yes, it is. Is the Pope a Catholic? Yes, he is. Do bears defecate in sylvan glades? Yes, they do. Unless you're convinced that it's not racism and you can tell me what it is, then the question will evolve, I think, slightly into why? Why are we frightened to call it out? Naz is in Enfield. Naz, what would you like to say?
Yes, I'd like to say that it's partly racism. It's also religious intolerance, because it's not just the brown skin he's objecting to, because remember, J.D. Vance has a Hindu wife and she's got brown skin and she's fine. He just...
Well, she's fine in a way, but she's not fine when a rampaging mob that claims it's only going after Muslims takes to the streets for a latter-day pogrom and starts setting fire to hotels full of brown people. Yeah. They're not going to check religious affiliation at the door. The intention of this kind of rhetoric is to turn people against people of colour. Yeah, brown people. Yeah, all of them.
Yes. But the way he does it, I mean, last time he called him a nasty man, and Keir Starmer said, "Oh, he's a friend of mine." Do you remember there was
yes?
And he's called him so many things, and we're a democracy. That's what we keep on saying.
He hates it, doesn't he? He hates it.
Yeah,
he hates the fact we've got a brown mayor. He can't deal with it.
Yes,
he hated a black president. His entire political career is built upon the fact that when Barack Obama was elected president, something inside him shattered.
Yes. He just hates London. He's even sort of he's so angry that London is not in uproar. So we voted for Sadiq Khan. People have voted for Sadiq Khan, and he can't accept that Londoners have voted for Sadiq Khan. So he keeps on attacking him. He attacks him for anything, but the Sharia law will get all like Nigel Farage's lot and reform and all.
Did he really say he'd heard it? Because someone told me when I got into work this morning that he said that Farage had said he knows it's true because a taxi driver had told him, or something like that. But someone may have been.
I heard.
Someone might have been pulling my leg now. So I don't think things would have been that dire, would they?
There are extreme ends of this that want us to become a country that follows their customs.
And where do you see that? Give me an example where that's been demonstrated recently. I'm assuming you're talking about...
I've met taxi drivers that have told me that. I've met taxi drivers that have told me, we will have Sharia law in Britain, you will live by our rules.
How do you respond when a taxi driver tells you that?
With shock.
And is that in London?
Horror.
Is that in London?
No, I actually first met that up in Buckinghamshire somewhere.
Do you want to tell me why we are still so reluctant to call out something that is so obvious?
I find it hard. Being a Muslim, I find it hard why no one's calling it out. Because it's surely a politician that's been elected should have some respect from the world, the leader of the Western world, and the way. Well,
surely anybody patriotic, any patriotic Brit, should be outraged at a foreign politician attacking our elected mayor.
Yes, they should.
Any commentator, any flag-waving champion of British values? You've got a foreign leader attacking our elected mayor. That's anathema. That flies in the face of everything they care to believe in.
But that's what I was saying, James. It just seems if it was someone else, if it was a white mayor, I think people would be in uproar. I think that
I don't know, actually. Maybe if it was a left-wing white mayor, then... But Trump wouldn't be saying the things that he's saying, and he wouldn't have the audience that he's got, and he wouldn't be able to stoke up the hate that he stokes up.
Where do we begin with this? The starting point is that if Sadiq Khan was a white man, this simply wouldn't be happening to him. But the point is this Renee...
Well, you couldn't accuse him, you couldn't lie about him wanting to introduce Sharia law. That is probably confined to people of brown skin, although there are white Muslims. So a white Muslim mayor could be lied about in the same way by Donald Trump, perhaps.
But let's just call it what it is. This kind of racism against Asians always existed. And now what they've done is that they've replaced the horrible P word with calling the Muslim word. And that's all it is. And these racists, they know what they do, and they know why they hide behind certain words. Because, James, in a nutshell, now, I've listened to you for about 13 years now.
Good God.
And one thing you said is Occam's razor. You know, sometimes there's often a simple answer to the most complex of questions. And it is this, is that they just want freedom from consequences. It's not that you can't say what you want. You can. Just like Lucy Connolly found out, but there is consequences. Now, you know, I'm sure your producer told you what I do for a living, and I've plucked up...
she didn't, actually.
I happen to be a barrister, and I can say there's 16 racially aggravated offences, religiously aggravated assault, there's harassment offences, there's inciting racial hatred, and I go on and on. But any one of these offences can land you in court. And as long as these offences are still here, the racists go out of their way to say they're not racist because the law still works and works effectively. And that is their problem.
I see what you mean. I wouldn't have thought of it like that, but trying to actually undermine the legal protections is the rationale for all this nonsense about two-tier justice. Farage wrote a piece for the Daily Mail in which he said, we all know that there are limits to freedom of speech. I thought everyone agreed that incitement to violence was one of them, or incitement to racial hatred. I forget his exact words. And then 48 hours later, Lucy Connolly walks onto the stage at his own party conference. And they claim that there's two-tier... I mean, what's that? Two-tier truth? So they don't like the laws. Saw it a little bit when, after Charlie Kirk was assassinated and people started having kittens if you repeated the words that he spoke. So freedom of speech without any consequences at all, up to and including being reminded of what you did while exercising that freedom of speech. It's surreal, right?
Exactly. Like we live in an era where being called a racist is actually worse than the actual act of racism, and it's gone mad. But
you're right.
It is fueled by the media, and let me explain why. The Greens more or less have the same amount of MPs in Parliament as Reform. Why is it that I can't even cough without seeing Nigel Farage in every single tabloid, every single news feed, every single clip? Yeah, I don't hear nothing about the Green Party. Same amount of membership, maybe even more. But you hear nothing about them, nothing about the Lib Dems. It's a business. Hatred is a business model that sells. But the thing that kills the racism and their biggest bugbear is that if I'm a black man, and if I was called the N-word, recorded it, and you called the police, they will be arrested. They'll start with their two-tier, but a judge will lock them up or put them on community service, and they will lose their job. So we have protection criminally, and obviously the Equality Act still stands, and we have protections there, and they hate that. So anything they say that is racist, there is a consequence, and they don't like that. That's the problem. They know for what they can say.
So when I've asked, and I'm not asking it rhetorically, but I think I have answers in my mind when I ask the question, what is it that they think they're not allowed to say? You're suggesting very convincingly that it's the things that are currently protected by law.
Yes.
What else is there? What else is there?
There is nothing else. It's freedom of consequence. You know, I think we've got to the point where Steve Bannon said that people should be proud to be racist, but again, it involves the dismantling of various racially aggravated offences and equality law. And my fear is, and God, I pray it doesn't happen, if Farage and them get to power with a majority, that's what they will aim to do. And that's what people want. You know, people have voted for, sadly, Brexit. And, you know, the current dinghy crisis is all caused because the Dublin 2, because we left Brexit. It's so obvious. It's infuriating, but people will keep voting against their own interests because
the hatred is so intoxicating, because it works so well, and that is what the button Donald Trump pressed yesterday was the button that said, be frightened of brown people.
I really like the idea of trying to simplify this. I think we're giving the Farages and the Trumps just far too much credit. The way I see it, there was a dam growing up for me, where on the other side of the dam was all the racism and the horrible stuff, and that was the underbelly, as it were. And for me, the dam has cracked, and I think we've been the proverbial boy sticking our finger in it, sort of to try and stop it over the last sort of 20 years. But Farage and Trump are the crack. They've let it through. So, I don't know, it's always been there. And again, I should have caveated, I'm coming at this as a 44-year-old white male, so I'm coming at this with pure privilege. But
it's not only been there. There's also Tinder, isn't there? I don't mean the dating site. There's also people who can be persuaded. And that's what this rhetoric is designed to do. So the first thing you do is you unleash the hardcore racists, all right? And
they're already ready. Yeah, they're ready to go.
You get that up and running. And that has happened as a consequence, perhaps. I mean, it was Stephen Yaxley Lennon, of course, that Nigel Farage relied upon. Oh, no, Andrew Tate that he relied upon for his information about the Southport killing. So you get the actual hardcore, full-on, what you might describe as the National Front legacy. But then you go to work on everybody else, and that's where the lies become really important, because you're telling people to be frightened. You're telling people that if there is some scumbag sex offender in a asylum processing centre in Epping, then you should be frightened of every single person in there. And imagine if a politician had a nephew who was a sex offender. Would anybody argue that means we should be suspicious of everybody with the same name, or everybody from the same family, or everybody of the same ethnicity? It would be absolutely absurd. But if it's an asylum seeker, then politicians are prepared to go down that very ugly road, that very dark road. And that's where the Tinder kicks in. So people who were not anything close to National Front level attitudes are being successfully frightened and terrorised is the word that I'd use. And lies about eating pets and eating swans is a wonderful example of precisely that.
But your last caller nailed it, I think, and I hadn't thought of it until I was sitting waiting to talk to you and listening to him. And he said, Trump said, you know, an awful thing, whatever it was, and Keir Starmer just was stood next to him, and he kind of smiled meekly and said, well, he's actually a friend of mine.
Well, that was what else could he have done?
Stamping on the Tinder before.
Do you want to punch him?
I'm not sure. No. That in that specific situation, absolutely, I don't know what he could have done.
Yeah.
But on a grander reductionist scale, it's like I think those people who are swayed, who are scared, haven't got the grown-up to turn around and look up to, who says, no, this is wrong.
And then, you're right. And that's the kind of leadership that Starmer could be providing. And there are suggestions he's about to start trying, but it may be too little too late. And he is not, so far, a particularly inspiring figure.